Welcome, Care, Share and Inspire, our Climate Wisdom Studio live from COP28 in Dubai, UAE. We bring together experts from science, politics and spirituality to explore the unfolding climate disaster. Myself, I'm Golo Pilz, and I'm the advisor on renewable energies to the Brahma Kumaris, and I will be tonight's moderator. Today, we are halfway through the climate conference, and many delegates are leaving and new ones are coming in. And so far, we have rather mixed observations. Some say it's a lobby fest where polluters can schmooze with politicians, all under the guise of tackling climate change, whilst others say a carnival-like atmosphere is a positive sign of increasing global engagement in the climate crisis. It's a huge circus and it's a good thing. It means the issue has reached a critical mass. So there are different opinions on the size of the COP. There are almost 84,000 delegates coming together at Expo City here in Dubai. As usual, we have to wait until the agreement is out. See text. We will keep you updated and posted on the developments. I'm very glad to have today 3 experts with me in the area of science, spirituality, and negotiation. Next to me is Dr. Vibha Dhawan. You are the Director General of TERI, the Energy and Resource Institute, a very prestigious research institute located in New Delhi in India. You are a Fellow of the National Academy of Science, and you're currently also serving as an Adjunct Professor, Consul General, Michigan State University. You are driven by a deep academic and research interest and have authored 6 books and over 50 publications. You won many awards, and your thought leadership and engagement is widely acknowledged.
Thank you.
Welcome to our panel discussion.
Thank you.
I've with us also is Emmanuel Sek. He is the program manager at ENDA Energy and NGO in Senegal. He has expertise in adaptation to climate change, climate finance, sustainable land management, and disaster risk management. He is currently a member of the UNFCCC Expert Group on Action and Support of the Global Board of Network for Disaster Reduction in the region of West and Central Africa. Welcome very much to our panel discussion. And last not least, for the last time in this panel discussion, I have Sister Jayanti Kriplani with us. She's the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, a spiritual organization with more than 5,000 meditation centers in India and 600 abroad. The Brahma Kumaris is accredited since 2009 to the UNFCCC and to the climate conferences, and Sister Jayanti has been almost all the times visiting the climate conferences. And she's also our main representative to the United Nations. So welcome to all of you to our panel discussion. And let me just start with my first question to Vibha. You are heading one of the most prestigious research institutes in India and have an illustrious career in academics research. Most computer simulations, they forecast that India will be quite seriously affected by climate change. I think it's Africa, one of the hotspots, and India also. And among the critical areas we can see is food production and also an increased number of heat waves. I just read an article that they expect the sales of air conditioning in India to soar because people are trying to adapt to these increasing heat waves. The government is doing a lot, for example, trying to replace wheat with millet. And millet is more heat resistant and needs less water, and I think is one of the ancient traditional foods in India. So I know that the government is pushing very hard at the moment to bring millet back. And even in our ashram now, we have more of millet that I also noticed. Can you give us an overview what India is doing in terms of adaptation? And how are the common people aware what's coming and what more can be done?
Yeah, it's a very valid question while we are talking of the climate change. And in fact, the general awareness about climate change That started with the beginning of this century. And before that, most of the people, they thought that why are we talking about the changing climate? It's the usual norm. But then the speed of the changing climate, that is increasing, and we are also at a threshold level that beyond that, the survival will become tough. It's also very clear because the IPCC reports, they have predicted that this is going to be the impact of the changing climate. Unfortunately, the facts are uglier than what was predicted. It's also true that the impact of changing climate is not going to be uniform around the world. And unfortunately, those countries which even today are struggling for food security and high temperatures, drought, floods, they are going to be even worse affected. Government, of course, has a huge responsibility, and I always say that we only have one planet to live. So let's not put everything on Government of India, and that is why we are at COP. We have to negotiate, we have to ensure that everyone owns the responsibility. And we have seen during the COVID time, we couldn't move anywhere else. This is the only planet. Now, in terms of food productivity, you have very rightly mentioned, and millets are also rich in nutrients. And malnutrition, again, is a problem in many parts of the world. And therefore, apart from adaptation, that is also a move towards going for nutritious food. However, I'll still like to make another comment, and that is looking at the huge population that we have to feed. We haven't done enough research in millets, and with the result, their productivity is comparatively on the lower side. So we shouldn't lose track of that how many mouths we have to feed. But what we are also thinking as a country, and that unfortunately it was also announced in COP this year, and we are talking of sustainability agriculture. And over there, what we are talking about, see, green revolution, great thing. And it has saved millions from starving or starvation deaths, I'll put it that way. But then somewhere it is also highly intensive process. The GHG emissions from the new agriculture are far greater than what was at the time of conventional agriculture. Because there we were putting back the agriculture residue back into the soil, and therefore soil carbon content was maintained. Nutrients were going back more or less. But today we try to replace everything by fertilizer. The way we apply fertilizers is that part of it gets absorbed by the plant, part of it goes into the groundwater, it pollutes your water, and part of it goes to the air. And that further adds to the emissions. Let's look at the way we grow paddy and so on. So when we are talking of bringing back sustainability, we are looking at conservation agriculture. Can we put back the agriculture residue? We are looking at biogas, and the biogas slurry which is left is a nutrient. We are looking at other parts like how can we use the plant microbes for increasing productivity, and mycorrhiza is one such fertilizer, which is actually a fungus which makes the non-available form of nutrients available to the plant. And the roots become very meshy, so that organic carbon remain in the soil. So it's a win-win situation. And like new technologies, like Terry and IFCO had brought it earlier, and now Terry is also has brought out nano fertilizer. So nano fertilizer is that you apply, you break the fertilizer, urea molecules into many small molecules, and then spray it directly on the leaf. So 100% absorption by the plant. Nothing goes to the air, nothing goes to the soil, everything is absorbed by the plant. So that way one has to look into how do we make agriculture more sustainable? How do we ensure that we grow the right crop at the right place? It's not just the market forces what sells in the market. It should be more of that I have to conserve water, natural resource. It's not free. You can still create energy, but you can never create water. So therefore, we have to be conscious, and that is what the steps Government of India is taking. And your last question was, are people aware? And I'll say everyone is aware, even the school children, they are educated, and They are becoming conscious, but and I'll also put last point as that the sustainability is engraved in the DNA of every Indian. And it's only that perhaps we lost the way in between, but now we are coming back. And Mission Life is one such step.
Wonderful sharing with us all these new initiatives. And I just like to mention in that context, we just started a biogas plant, sorry, in Shantivan. We do waste segregation, and then we bring back the slurry as a fertilizer, and we do little filtration with the biogas, and we use a generator, 50 kilowatt generator, for 8 hours per day. Great. And this will be also an example, and we try then later to replicate it. And I think end of the year, the plant will go operational. I just yesterday got a photo that the membrane has been installed. So we are also working in that area, and it's good to know that Terry is leading the research in that direction. Thank you very much.
And I'll just like to say there is no word like waste. It's wasted. There is wealth from each and every waste material.
And interestingly, in old days, people were much closer to these natural cycles. Absolutely. And often technology has brought a distance and created problems. Thanks very much. Emmanuel, some days ago, the conference agreed on loss and damage funds. It was a bit of a big news. And these funds come a bit late, and it's a bit less money in these funds. And I mean, no money can ultimately pay for the damage which climate change is causing. It also seems that many parties are not ready to phase out fossil fuels and invest enough into clean technology. In the last days, we had some controversies flaring up in the press and in the media, and some people made some press announcement, it's not meant like this, it's not meant like that. So the situation is quite fluid right now. What clear action has to be taken by COP? And can the COP mechanism deliver what is needed, or alliances of the willing party outside the UN mechanism are the better option?
Thank you very much. Allow me to thank you for giving us the opportunity to widen the audience on these climate issues. As you said in the introduction, we definitely need a critical mass, because we are all in the same boat, but we have to cross the river to the sustainability. What we are looking for is to shift paradigm for low carbon and resilient society. We cannot do it without having all citizens in the process. That's why also I welcome not only the decision that we have to adopt the loss and damage fund, but to have more and more people attending the conference of parties. And we may have different objectives in attending the conference. It's not only negotiation. It is showing what you are doing on the ground for people to see if they can scale up or learn from this. The third thing is that we are here also to build partnership and alliance. Alliance for humanity, alliance for sustainability. This said, I had this question with some journalists, and I say, yes, they ask me what next. I say there is a lot to do. Even it's come late, but I will not say that it is late. It's come on time. But because we are in a transition. The transition doesn't mean revolution. Let's see if people are first well prepared for the way we are going in terms of low carbon. We have to go together, and we should not leave anyone behind. That's mean in terms of technology, in terms of policy, countries have to be well prepared, and citizens also. If not, we can have some consequences that people would not really understand where it's come from. For example, if a head of state take a resolution here and say, I will come for a phase out in 2050 neutral take engagement, how he will implement it without engagement of citizens? We could not. So that means that we need to prepare people, inform, raise awareness, generate knowledge for people to be in the process. What we need is not only that. We need not only announcement, but we need effective finance for people who are on the ground to get the resources. And in an effective way, I mean, this should be in an efficiency way, because we all know that we got a lot of resources in this climate finance process. But in terms of impact, can we say that there is the impact that we are expecting from this with the communities? It is not. Only less than 10% of the finance goes to communities.
That's a very interesting statement you're doing, and I feel all initiatives, whatever has been decided at COP or will be decided at COP, it has to be accountable, that's for sure. Because many announcements have been made, but accountability is not there, and after some 2-3 years, they are also forgotten. Thanks very much. This brings me to Sister Genti. Sister Genti, this is your last day at the climate conference. You literally, I've seen you talking there, and you literally gave your heart, not your feelings, and you really very passionate spoke at the many programs, and you shared spiritual insights. But you also listened to many speakers, and you heard the different stories and the different voices. Is there something you have learned you are taking back to London when you leave? Please let us know what inspired you.
One of the things that came up in a session in which I was participating yesterday was, again, the topic was loss and damage. But within that, what came up was the non-economical losses. And a lot of attention was given to that because you can lose your home, that's one thing. But if you lose your family, how does that impact you? What happens if you lose your culture? And of course, the small islands of the Pacific are in that situation where it can happen any minute now that they lose not just their home, but their families maybe, but also their culture, their traditions. And yes, they're being invited to come and stay in other countries, but their connection is with that land, and that land is gone forever. How can there be any remuneration for that? So this came up as a very intense discussion, especially with people from the Marshall Islands and so on, and Fiji. So it touched my heart very deeply, because it's a fact that if there's a loss that you can recompensate for, that's one thing, but there's loss in so many other different ways. And this is why it's really not enough to just talk about monetary, financial things, but also to think in a bigger picture about human beings and their lives and families and so on. So this came across to me very, very strongly yesterday. So the other thing that also came up in that same session, there was a young man from Norway, and he spoke about how there'd been a storm in Finland just a few weeks earlier. And he said that the estimation of the damages caused by that one storm in a developed country was about half the amount that had been promised for the total world in terms of loss and damage. And so he said, you can see that it's peanuts compared to what is actually needed. And of course, again, this isn't being taken into consideration. And today, when I was reading a few other figures, I was seeing that the money being given in terms of expenditure on war is like trillions. Absolutely. And what's being given for loss and damage is a few millions. And so it still feels to me that people aren't really serious about that subject. But of course, that's only one part of the whole subject of climate change. And again, I feel that although people are feeling the brunt of climate change everywhere, in Britain, they keep having floods again and again and again. And of course, there's no answer for what can be done. In India, of course, it's the heat and the floods and the drought, both things coming together. So all of this is going on, but I don't think people realize that it's something that's happening inside that's being seen outside. And so when we change our mindset, we change our consciousness, then there can be something that can happen in a bigger way, not just temporary band-aid stuff. So I think that we need to work a bit harder to make people aware.
So you really have some moving stories which you take with you back home, and
really.
they make you think.
Yeah.
And yes, that's very nice to share with us what you heard there, what moved you on the inside. Very nice. Livia, men dominate the climate politics. The arena, such as UNFCCC and even climate finance, it's all dominated mostly by men. Quite interesting. On the other hand, climate change impacts mostly women and girls. More and more data and research reveals that there's a vital connection between gender, social equity, and climate change. Is it not time to talk now on this topic about the linkages between women's empowerment and effective global action against climate change? What kind of change in mindset and policies in India, but also in the world, are needed?
Well, it's quite an interesting question, and you're absolutely right. It's the woman who suffers the most. And it's also very typical, and I suppose it's to do something with their sacrificing nature. And therefore, they don't even demand that they are facing hardship. So they become a silent sufferer of whatever is happening. And you're right, if we take the case of India, it's not just that they are not active players in climate change. And sometimes I say that you look at agriculture, it's largely practiced by women. Look at the farm machinery. Is it women friendly? The answer is no. And even I'll say, even for us, the car belts are not very comfortable for us, but no one had thought about it. So it's right from the farm machinery to whatever we are using. It over years, it has remained male dominating. But I'll also put it this way, that last few years, we have seen the change, which is very rapid, and it is for the good. And all that started largely with the women education. And of course, they are getting educated, but still at the back of their mind, it's engraved that they are responsible to take care of their family. And in the bargain, what happens is that the years when they actually have to make their career, they also are entering into the phase that they have children, family, and so on. And therefore, there is some sort of a break. And those who are highly educated, so somewhere over there also it is that they'll finish the work, whatever is required in the office, they'll be very sincere, they'll deliver beyond what is expected from them, but then at the end of the day, they want to run back home. They never socialize. It's very few of us who believe in that, and we do it. Now, I'll also like to put it this way, that we are taking, especially in India, we are looking into the governance issue, that women should have power to do that. We look at the panchayats, which is at the village level. 1/3 of the heads of panchayats, they have to be women. The scenario is changing. Many years back, we used to say that, yes, they are sitting in front, but they are dictated by their husbands or father-in-laws. But as they are in that position for a few years, they are empowered to take their own decisions. So that is changing. I won't blame any of the organizations, and whether it is male or female heading that. I believe that there are committees in which there is fair representation of women. The only thing we are still neglecting is that we should be little more sensitive towards their demands. What is it they require? So you're right to some extent that decisions therefore are not in favor of them, which need to be. But I'll also put it this way, that with economic independence, women are also empowered to take their decisions, and we are moving in the right direction. We can move a bit faster, but we are still moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's an interesting answer you gave. And I'm coming since 40 years to India almost. First time I came 85, and I noticed a big change over the years. And you will be glad to note, to hear that Brahma Kumaris is administrated by women. It's Brahma Kumaris, the daughters of Brahma. And I must say, it gives a very nice and familiar atmosphere to our organization. And food is always good also.
That is true.
Yeah.
And you'll also, like, in a way, you'll see that during COVID time, the countries which were headed by women, they have done much better. Not to say India has done exceedingly well, but let's also give, because see, what happens is, we also say in India that if you educate a woman, you are educating a family, because they'll take care of their next generation. And that is how it is that once they have economic independence, they don't, once they have surplus money, they would like to invest in their children's education. And there are a lot of FPOs, farmer producer organizations, self-help groups run by women for them. And that is actually helping in rural development as well. So there are successful examples.
And wonderful signs in India, and we hope it goes in the right direction.
It is going in the right direction. I can tell you with confidence.
Emmanuel, this COP has almost 84,000 delegates. That's the latest number I heard, registered delegates. And some say it's very, very good that we are so many, and others say it's diluting the process. And I must say, it's not easy to navigate at the COP. When I came first time, I thought, where are all the people and where are actually the programs happening? Because in old climate conference, we were used that it's all sort of in one area, and here it's like in a city. It's the expo city, actually. And you walk from one area to the other, you have to walk 2 kilometers or so. And interestingly, big oil and big money also is here in the climate conference in numbers we have never seen before. It's quite astonishingly, I've heard some number of a couple of thousand delegates from oil and from the banks, the international banks. And that is new for the COP, that big business and big oil is also here. And the COP is also taking place in one of the oil producing countries. It's quite interesting. Is this a good or is it a bad sign? Do we need big money and big oil to help us? What is your idea about it?
You know, I want often to remain positive. Remain positive means that we need to bring everyone on. Change people's mind if it is possible, to go in the way that we are all calling for, I mean sustainability. Because we just have one word. It is not two words. And if we have one word, we need to think together how we will manage this word. Having the fossil fuel, or those who are promoting the fossil fuel, is a way for them, because we say we are negotiating. Negotiating is discussing with each other to see what will be the best way for us to manage our words. If they come in a way that they think we should go in a sustainability, that will be fine, because what we need to get behind us is profitability. Let's look at, if we come with a profitable sustainability, that is possible. We can invite the business people if they come in the way to profitable sustainability. What we don't want is sustainable profitability. I don't know if you understand what I mean by this word. They are totally different. So let's open the door for everyone to join the process. We are organizing the conference here in Dubai. We have seen that many people made commitment and pledge for the positive way, I mean how to support those who are suffering the most on climate change. Like people from the small islands, and even in Africa, if you go, for example, in the Sahelian countries, they are in conflict. In Niger, they are in conflict. In Mali, in Burkina Faso. And these people are suffering from a double vulnerability. That's mean conflict and climate change. We cannot forget these people. We have to do something. And if those, because in this transition, for example, Senegal will become a gas country. And what we said is the resources or the benefit that we'll get from this gas should help us at least to move to clean technology. It depends on the way that we use the resources. And I think this have to be noted. Not only pushing people that you are fossil, they are part of the process. Let's see the best way to get them in. And if they can change, because if you look at also Dubai or the city, they are moving in a clean process. So let's push for that. And I think we said it at the beginning, having 84,000 is good. Is good because why it is good, I have said it, there are those who are negotiating in the text. There are few, there are not more than 200. But the others, they would like to see how the process is working. And when they go back at home, they would sensitize or aware the others to say that it is time for us to change. And it is in this way that we'll get the critical mass.
Interestingly, some days ago, a study was published from Deloitte for the World Economic Forum. And they estimated that the transition to clean technology would bring $40 trillion of business. $40 trillion of business. So there's a lot of opportunity also to generate income. And we had a session with Solar Cooker International yesterday, and they have success stories where they bring solar cookers to local community and then they teach them how to build them, and then they have also income. So it's a win-win situation. So actually transition to clean technology is the right way to go from all aspects, actually. Mr. Jayanti, the Brahma Kumaris is administrated by women, as I mentioned, and which makes it a very unique organization, not only in India, but also in the world. I remember when I see these photos with the spiritual leaders, then quite often our sisters in white are the only women in the photo. It's quite interesting. Your mentor was Dadi Janki, who passed away some years ago at an age of 104. I was lucky also to meet her many, many times. And here at COP, we hear a lot about the power of youth, fast action. But what about the wisdom of the elderly? What about the power of woman? In India, it's called Shakti. It has some mythical implications. Can you share your thoughts?
I was very fortunate to have been close to the original group that started the organization with Brahma Baba. And so they started when they were in their teens. And by the time I got to know them, they were in their 60s. And I was still in my teens at that point. So I grew up with them. And I loved their warmth, their friendship, their humility, their deep, deep wisdom and insights. And so older women definitely have a huge amount to offer to the world, not just the younger generation, but to everyone. And women in particular were chosen by Brahma Baba to lead the organization so that there could be a balance restored, because women have not had the right to make decisions for so long. And especially where we started, which was at that time Sindh, and that today is Pakistan, but at that time it was a united India in the 30s. So in Sindh, even today, women are second-class citizens. And so in the 30s, it was a very revolutionary step that Brahma Baba took. But it was filled with total wisdom, because when you're on a spiritual path, you're not just giving lectures, you're not just talking about spirituality, but you're guiding people with your life. You walk your talk and you guide them with your own experience and spiritual love and nurture. You think about the caring professions, many of them are dominated by women even now. And so the care that's needed for spiritual development for every individual is that care that comes from the feminine side. Brahma Baba himself a man, but he had those feminine qualities also. And so I'm thinking more about the feminine characteristics. And so it's a very natural trait that women have to be able to give that sort of sustenance and care. And I see that that's how our organization has grown, from a handful of women to a worldwide organization with a very reputable standing at the UN since 1982. We've been affiliated since then. And so I see that having women in that role of leadership has meant that there's a lot of collaboration. Women work together as a collaborative team more easily than masculine egos that can sometimes come in. And so the result is the proof of our expansion. And Dadi Janki, one person alone, of course, she would never say it's me. She'd always say it's the one above, which is also true, that there is the power of the divine, that Shakti that you mentioned. But on a human level, this one woman who came to London with just a few sets of white clothes, she was able to create centers in 120 countries. Why? Because through her own life, she taught. The teachers who now run our centers in most of the continents across the world are people who she made friends with. She gave them of herself. She nurtured them. Well, you know yourself the amount of time she gave you. And so, yes, I would say that the feminine principle is what's needed, both in climate change, the care for nature, the respect and love for nature, but also it's what the world needs at the present time.
Thank you very much. I remember when I joined Brahma Kumaris in '84, my mother was a bit concerned because, I mean, I was brought up in a Christian cultural background and tradition. And I went to India and my mother was a bit concerned. And then some 3-4 years later, she came to India and she met Dadi Janki. Then she came to me and said, now I know you're in good hands and I can relax. So that was very sweet, yeah. Very sweet reaction, yeah. Very lovely, yeah. Livia, coming to our third question. Emissions still, unfortunately, are going on. I participated in a press conference of Carbon Tracker, and they said we're right now heading towards 2.5 centigrades with the NDCs which have been given by everybody at the moment. So we have to improve all our promises, especially the most vulnerable, which are at the same time least responsible for climate change, are suffering a lot. India is a country with an incredible spiritual legacy, rooted in values and ethics. I mean, it's an ancient civilization still alive, probably the only ancient civilization which has survived up to date. And can a revival of ethic and moral values or principles change the trend? What gives you hope? And are there special moments at the COP which you would like to share with us?
Well, I'll put it this way. You're absolutely right. Emissions are going up. And maybe for countries like ours, they're going to go even more compared to many parts of the world because they have already developed. India, as a country, we have to develop. And happily, I'll put it this way, because we don't have fossil fuel. We don't have petrol like fossil fuel, which this part of the world is enjoying. With the result, for many years, the production cost of whatever we produced was higher. We have to import every drop of oil from somewhere. Today, as we move towards renewable, and that is what Government of India has said, while they are talking about that they are going to go net zero by 2070, they are going to reduce their emissions while the peak still has to come. Good part of the story is that we are developing. When we talk even of infrastructure, we say 2/3 of the infrastructure is yet to be built. What is that infrastructure cost us? We want steel, we want cement, we want water, and there are going to be emissions. And also our industry has to develop. But we have to still build. So therefore, we have the opportunity to follow green practices as much as possible. We don't have to break and construct, we have to do it for the first time. And therefore, I also see India emerging as a leader for other countries. What is wrong is that when everyone tells us they have used practically every sort of energy that was available to that country, why to put pressure on India? Because you also have to ensure, I always say, that if you want peace on this planet, equitable growth is very important. And over there, I see a lot of role for renewables. You talk of solar, same. So sun doesn't differentiate which part of the world it's shining. You look into hydrogen production in years to come. Again, if you're going green, you are using the natural resource which is available to you. So we are really speaking in years to come, it's going to be an equitable ground for us to grow. So that is the good part of it. It's again, like when we talk of that, those who are suffering today are unfortunately are those who hasn't contributed to the climate change. And Sister Jayanti very rightly mentioned that your heart cries when you see them, when you see those tragedies. And in fact, it is not like if there is a flood in New York, maybe they'll lose 1% or less than that of their income. But if you have flood in Uttarakhand of my country, perhaps the next generation will not be able to go to school because they'll lose everything. So therefore, it's very important when we even talk of funds, we talk of adaptation measures, that the world looks at the developing part of the world. Where should they be investing? We are living in a planet today where what is happening in one part of the globe is known to rest of the world in no time. We don't want to have dissatisfaction, because otherwise you are going to have societies which will start hating each other. Now, if we look at India, and I'll say something in Hindi, like when we pray to God, we always say, Sabka bhala karo Bhagwan. And that is that, God, please take care of everyone. You should be kind to everyone. So that essentially is that we are looking for a society, a planet, and what our Prime Minister recently had given a slogan, and that is, wish the world is like a family. That is how we should grow. We are also talking of I look back, what we were taught as children, it was more of that you have to take care of your friends. It's one society, you share whatever little you have. If and nothing was wasted. Like when we have started talking today about circular economy, but if I go back to my grandmother's generation and my parents' generation, giving was part of living. It was that, like, I remember my grandmother keeping part of the food, like when lunch is prepared, she'll put something in the refrigerator and she'll say, if someone comes. So if someone comes, which may be once in 10 days, but there should be food in the refrigerator for that person. Anyone coming, and people won't mind staying with you for months. So that is what our culture is. Sustainability is engraved in our DNA. We lost the way in between. We started aping the West, but I think we are back on the track. And Mission Life is one such step that see what is happening.
Wonderful what you mentioned. And that reminds me, when I was a young boy, I was the smallest of 3 brothers. I had to wear all the shoes, all the cloth, everything. And I was crying. And my mother said, no way.
Absolutely.
And when the shoes were old, you brought them for repair. It was quite normal. And now things have completely. But I also was growing up in Germany 50, 60 years ago, under the same principles. Nothing should be wasted. Very interesting and nice what you shared with us. Emmanuel, Africa is already facing a lot of negative effects of climate change, and common people to suffer already a lot. What gives you hope? Can you share success story of adaptation and resilience?
Before coming to your question, I would like to just say that the climate change is not only an environmental issue. It's not even a political issue. It is a geopolitical issue. And we should understand it in this way. What I mean is that we reach the limit to growth. And we need to find other alternatives. Because what they said, the fossil fuels are not longer sustainable. And to find alternative before we come to the end of these resources is where we are. That is why we are not discussing only climate change in the UNFCCC process. We are discussing climate change where the G7 are meeting, when the G20 are meeting. That means it is a very serious issue. This said, we all agree that there are many regions, particularly Africa, who is suffering with the climate change. But what we believe is we have opportunity. If you look at some data, Africa is 40% has 40% of solar energy potential of the world. What we need is certainly investment. What we need is certainly technology. And if people want that we use this opportunity, and we were talking about here in terms of principle, solidarity. And we all believe that we should go in the way of low carbon. Why will not make accessible the technology that is available for people to value the renewable energy? It is available. So, and I think based on that, we are trying like a small drop, because small drop make the river, to build some experience through some project, for example, in terms of energy access, for people to value some chain like the milk chain. In our region, for example, in the far village inside the countries, people are producing a lot of milk, more than what we are importing. But we cannot transform the milk. We cannot stock the milk. And the unused milk become a waste. And then what we are doing is to try to set up some solar unit. And with this solar unit, we stock the milk in this community that never know electricity or even energy. And we help them to transform the milk in yogurt. And the yogurt have access to the market. We are training them also to produce cheese. It is this kind of small things that they are doing in terms of, for example, promoting improved cook stove for people at least to reduce pressure on the woods and the forest. So and I think that we'll come to that when we'll come to the second part of the CDN, the National Determined Contribution, the NDCs, to gather what people are doing on the ground. And I think that if we come to scale up this kind of experience, at least we contribute to enhance the community resilience.
It's very nice to hear these success stories. And definitely, if we see the historical emissions and who's responsible, the developed nations definitely have to come in and bring technology and transfer funds. So I remember some years ago in Germany, it was May, there was a lot of wind, there was a lot of sunshine, and suddenly Germany was 100% on renewables. And it was in all the newspaper, and everybody said, wow, that's possible. I mean, Germany is like consuming a huge amount of energy. And right now we are at an average of 45% or so. Mm-hmm. It's incredible what's possible. And Germany doesn't have really that much of sunshine as Africa, for example, you know. So it's possible, and definitely the developed nations have to come forward now. And I hope at this COP also the global community understands that the transfer has to come from the developed nations, bring the technology, bring the funds, and help everybody to go straight for. So, Mr. Genti, coming to your last question, we're a little bit late, but we still have time. As per Brahma Kumaris, we live in dark time. In India, it's called the Kali Yuga. You know what I mean with that. And I heard that you said the translation is machine, death, or time. It's very interesting for Kali Yuga. And it seems that even worst case scenarios can become a reality. Not have to be, but can become a reality. The Brahma Kumaris promotes a new age approaching called the Sat Yuga, the age of truth. And definitely our COP, our climate conference, could use a bit more truth quite valuably to come to an agreement very fast. Can you elaborate a bit on the coming transition towards this age of truth and share your hopes and your outlook?
Whatever happens in the world starts with the human mind. And so when our mind has been focused on materialism and commercialism, we see the result of that. And if our minds were to focus on spirituality, truth and love and purity and joy, we would see a different world. And so the Brahma Kumaris are saying that that goodness is inherent within every human being, every human soul, but we've forgotten. And now we have to learn to connect with that goodness within so that we express it in our life. And so I see it as a very natural transition from dark to light because of the evolution of the human spirit. And I believe that that's happening right now. You know, we're seeing the world in a state of chaos, but yet we're also seeing truth and beauty emerge and focus on values. We didn't talk about values 20 years ago in the way that we're talking about these today. We didn't see women's empowerment in the way that we're seeing it today. Vegetarian diet is coming up in a beautiful way. So a holistic approach to life, whether it's health or whether it's education, again, that's coming up. And so I'm seeing that there's many aspects for hope, but these are also all the things initiated through the inner spiritual power that we're able to attain through silence, through the connection with the divine. So yes, definitely, it's not just a hope, but it's actually a vision that there will be a world of truth, a golden age in which the highest qualities of the human spirit will flourish.
Thanks very much. So crisis as a chance, and it brings out the best in us humans. And this is a powerful message of hope, in line a little bit with our motto of our live studio: care, share, and inspire. Thank you very much, Sister Jenny. Emmanuel, one word, one good wish for the COP. Just one word. What is your good wish for the COP?
That we have not only engagement, but we need resources, financial resources. Definitely, yeah, for people.
Resources. Vivian, what's your good wish for the COP?
Well, I'll put it this way: they just have to realize that we are not gathering money for our next generation. We should just look at a world environment which is better than what we are living in. It doesn't belong to us.
Say that in one word?
Yes, in one word. That's a little difficult, but realization, we have one world to live.
Realization, one world, yeah. That's good. Sister Genti, what is your good wish for the COP?
Compassion.
Would be so.
Absolutely.
Everybody compassionate. Wonderful. Such great inspirations from all of you, and time is ticking. Sister Genti, would it be possible you guide us in a short meditation and wrap up all this what has been spoken and transform it in powerful thoughts which we can send towards the climate conference?
Sure, thank you. I reflect on the things I've been hearing about: empowerment, equality, education, awareness, justice, truth. And I go on an inner journey to see if I can have the power, the capacity to connect with these qualities. At the core of my being, there is peace. I connect with peace. And as I begin to feel peaceful, my vision becomes broader and is able to rise above, beyond limits. And my heart opens up And I know that we are one family and we have one home. And these vibrations of peace and love multiply together. And these vibrations touch the human family, all forms of life, and nature itself. Om.
Thank you very much for this wonderful meditation. It reminds me when the intellect and the heart they join, the hands will do the right thing. So wonderful. Thanks a lot to our speakers, Livia, Emmanuel, and Sister Genti. I like to mention also our patrons and sponsors, the Brahma Kumaris, Kalptaru Tree Plantation, Brahma Kumaris Environment Initiative, Yogis for Future, Radio Madhuban, and India Care Trust. Special thanks also to our host, the Raja Yoga Center here in Dubai. And thanks also to all the special hands behind the camera who made this panel discussion possible. Please join us in 2 days at the same time for another interesting session of Care, Share and Inspire. Please look up for more details our webpage www.echo.brahmakumaris.org. And last and least, thanks very much to you, our audience. You stayed all the time with us, and I hope there was some good inspiration for you. Think about it, and goodbye and good night from Dubai.